Hi, I'm Marina Freckman, and I'm a fourth-year American Studies major and architecture minor.
Hi, I'm Michelle Patel. I'm a fourth-year Foreign Affairs and History major.
And I'm Margaret Gilbert. I'm a fourth-year Religious Studies major and Bioethics minor. And we're going to talk to you about our project building a schoolyard garden at Clark Elementary School in Charlottesville.
In 2011, our team decided that we wanted to give back to the Charlottesville community. We all have similar interests and background in nutrition and healthy lifestyles, so we thought it would be a great idea to employ those passions and interests in a project at a city school in Charlottesville. 80% of students at Clark Elementary School are on free and reduced lunch. Clark is one of 6 public city elementary schools in Charlottesville, and most of the students come from low-income families. This was one of the major reasons that we decided to work very closely with Clark. Also, in the past 7 years, they've had 5 different principals, so this has caused the school to be in a state of flux. Their current principal, Dr. Kaiser, came to the school in 2011, which coincided when we started working with Clark, so this was great in establishing a similar ground to build upon together in producing some sort of program there. So at the beginning, we had many meetings with Clark parents and teachers and community members who were involved in the Clark community to decide how best we could start some sort of program dealing with nutrition. And after all of those meetings and discussions, we decided the best way would be to establish an after-school nutritional education program.
So in the fall of 2011, we started working on this after-school program at Clark. Once a week, we met with 2 groups of students for 45 minutes each, which consisted of about 15 students. We taught them everything from the basics of nutritional principles and concepts, all the way to having more fun activities such as yoga taught by one of the teachers. We realized that the first 15 to 20 minutes of these programs are really engaging and the students were interested, but after that, the remainder of that 45-minute session became harder and harder to retain the attention of these children. One thing we did notice, though, is that we went outside, and whether it was to play games, whether it was to do a lesson outside, the students were more engaged, they're more enthused, and they just seemed happier overall. So we started to think of a way where we could have a sustainable outdoor learning tool for these children. One thing that really came in mind that fell in line with the principles of our nutritional education program was a schoolyard garden.
So it's about this time that we started researching schoolyard gardens and also looking into doing a JPC report to help provide the financial means to make such a goal possible. And so in this time, we found City Schoolyard Gardens, which was then a new nonprofit organization with the overall goal to build a schoolyard garden in every school in Charlottesville. So in meeting with them, we quickly realized that we could work under their umbrella and build in a garden at Clark to help them pursue their overall goal. So after that, we worked closely with City Schoolyard Gardens, and they helped us a lot with the logistical matters of building and maintaining the garden. In addition, we quickly realized that we would pursue a more anthropological approach in our research around this. So this would mean more research based on group discussions and dialogues and speaking with community members and students rather than more surveys and conducting formal interviews.
So once we had realized that the Clark community was enthusiastic about building a schoolyard garden, we started getting down to the logistics. So we met with the principal and the vice superintendent and the Department of Parks and Recreation of Charlottesville to decide the best location and other logistical things about the garden. So we took in factors of sunlight, visibility from the streets that pass Clark, proximity to water, and accessibility. And once we had established that, we broke ground. Previously, we understood that the reality of a garden wasn't necessarily financially possible for Clark, but they really wanted it to be incorporated in their school. So we were happy that we could become this financial resource as well as the research behind such a project. At the same time, when we started building the garden, City Schoolyard Gardens appointed a Clark parent, Eiley Patterson, to be the garden coordinator. So we have worked very closely with her over the year to establish and maintain and incorporate this garden into the Clark community.
So on September 15th of this year, we held our first community work day. Parents, teachers, students all came out early on a Saturday morning to help us break ground on the garden. Both Principal Kaiser as well as other community members were excited to come out and help us build these 6 beds, which are the foundation for our after-school garden. They did prove not only useful in building the gardens themselves, but also starting to facilitate a conversation both about the gardens as well as nutrition in general with community members. Less than 2 weeks later, after-school clubs started once again at Clark, and we were able to have our first lesson in the garden.
So the first day that we took our kids to use the garden, we wanted to make sure that they were really comfortable, and we wanted to familiarize them with this new space and being dirty and being outside. So the first activity we did was we had them roll up their sleeves and just put their hands in the dirt. So we asked them questions about the temperature of the soil and the texture, and had them observe and describe to us and pick out some of the impurities like the rocks and the sticks. And one of the great things that happened that day was they all got super excited because they found these earthworms, and they were all squeamish and running around and screaming at each other. But they were so excited to just like have discovered something totally cool in the soil. So this was really reassuring to us right from the start as teachers that we were actually going to be able to engage them and complement their education at Clark. So that was really cool.
Another really exciting moment for us was when the vegetables got big enough to actually eat. And this reminded me of an exercise that we did with the kids before we had the garden, where we were trying to show why it's better to eat an apple or lettuce than to eat a processed food like a Pop-Tart. Because in a Pop-Tart, there are so many ingredients that we have no idea where they came from or really even what they are. But in something like lettuce, you can tell that it grows straight from the ground, and you know how and then we started to teach them how that grew. And so it was really exciting to see how they understood this lesson a lot better once they'd actually watched the lettuce grow and once they'd gotten to taste it.
So previous to having the garden, when we were doing in-class educational activities, we'd often use diagrams such as this one to explain how things grew. Sure, the children can see that, or the students can see that you plant a seed, you water it, it germinates, it turns into food, and eventually you eat it. And while they understood that concept, not having the tangible means to actually show it was somewhat challenging. But after we had the garden, we were able to have the children plant the seeds, take care of it themselves, as well as watch it grow and eventually even eat it. And that proved very useful in both empowering the students to seeing how things grew, as well as enlightening for them in terms of actually making it easier to understand how it grows. And it's actually a lot simpler than, perhaps just going to a grocery store and not seeing where your food comes from.
Another exciting event for us was when we held Soup and Cider this past November. And here we had some of our students go out to the garden and pick some bok choy, and then we helped them cut it up for a salad, and we brought in some soup and some apples and some apple cider. And so it was really exciting to incorporate what our students had helped grow into this healthy meal that we could share with some parents and also teachers.
And recently, a few weekends ago, we held our first spring work day, which was exciting after all of that snow. So we built 6 new raised beds, as well as finished 3 picnic tables to create more of a dynamic space where teachers could bring their students out and engage with them in the garden, but then hold activities at the tables, and it made it more of a complete classroom space. We had a lot of volunteers come out on that day, which was great. And this semester, we've especially been focused on the sustainability of the program and of the garden. And thanks to the garden coordinator, we've been able to hopefully ensure that the teachers will continue using the garden. They've been coming out frequently during the week with our garden coordinator to implement certain lessons that'll stay mainstream in their classrooms, which is awesome.
So teachers have been coming out to the garden not only to teach lessons, but also taking care of it. Yesterday, actually, 3 teachers went out to do some plantings in the garden. And we've also enabled the teachers to create a sort of wish list for things they would like in terms of maybe books or activities they could have that they need funding for, which would help to engage the students in the garden in their own creative way. So this has not only piqued the interest of more teachers, but it's also given them a sense of community ownership over the garden rather than just something we're putting down there. And this is very vital for us in terms of ensuring the long-term sustainability of the program and the project when we leave, because now the teachers are consistently coming out there. They're going to have the resources they need to continue to use the garden.
And over the course of this year and a half, we've found that we've been able to, through this garden, establish a new sort of relationship that the kids have with food in general, just in trying new things like garlic and bok choy and lettuce and having them see where it actually comes from and wanting to eat it rather than turning away like a salad from a store or a restaurant. So that's been really exciting.
Yeah, and so in keeping with this anthropological approach, we've gotten to see and observe and talk to different community members about how the garden has influenced them and how it's influenced the students and how they think about food. So we're really excited to see how the garden progresses and continues to grow after we're no longer directly involved with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.